All right, well, welcome everybody. My name is Tim McDonald, and this is the Business of Speaking. And I am so happy this morning to be joined by my very first guest, Dr. Melissa Bird. How are you doing this morning, Missy?
I'm good. I'm good. It's early and it's raining, but
You
it's
know, and yeah, well, thank you so much for being gracious enough to get up really early for you. This is like mid morning for me, but I know we're in different time zones. So I really do appreciate you taking the time. So really
okay.
just yeah, just to give everybody and you a little bit of an overview of what the business of speaking is and how it came about is I was leaving a job, getting ready to do speaking full time and make it my goal to create enough income doing that. And lo and behold, I have great timing with everything. Pandemic hit. And so I said, what can I do? And I'm like, well, why don't I use this time to actually learn from other speakers that I know about their business? And especially now during this time because it's changing the events, the conferences, and everything else. So we're going to dive into that a little bit, but I really want to make this something that anybody at any time can get value out of. So why don't we start by asking you, Missy, how did you get involved in speaking to begin with?
Well, it I sort of tumbled into it. So, way back, oh gosh, it was like 2002 or really early on in the like millennium or whatever. Was getting my master's degree in social work, and I had done a paper. I was in Utah, and at the time, Utah had banned gay and lesbian people from foster parenting or adopting. And I had written a paper, a policy brief on it for school. And I happened to get it to the director of Equality Utah, and they were putting together a big rally at the Capitol. And he asked if I would speak. And I had my speech and debate class in high school, and I literally, like, my speech teacher would hand me a garbage can and I'd throw up into it, give my speech, and then run out the door because I hated speaking, even in front of my friends that I'd known my whole life, and I hated it. And so when he asked me to speak, I was like, "Oh no, this is not a good idea." And I overdressed, and I was wearing pantyhose, which I never do. And I was wearing pantyhose and I was so hot and I was wearing this suit and 800 layers of pearls. I looked like Madonna and Margaret Thatcher had a baby. It was ridiculous. And I get up at the podium and I don't remember giving that speech at all. I talked so fast. I got through it, ran to the bathroom and threw up at the Capitol. And but I everybody came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. You were so incredible. Thank you for speaking what we've been thinking." And I was like, "I did that? This is interesting." And that started people asking me to talk at things. And I ended up running a nonprofit organization, a political organization in Utah after I finished my master's degree. And I had to speak in front of 750 people every year and ask them for money at our big annual dinner. And so I just got used to standing up in front of a crowd, and gradually it evolved into this thing where now I'm a full-time speaker and I go all over the country and the world and speak at conferences and events, and I do smaller workshops and then larger conferences and keynote speeches. So it I was not I literally fell into it. It wasn't something that I like woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to be a public speaker. No.
Well, as I'm listening to your story, and I hate to do all these like go back in time and do what ifs, right? But in this situation, if you weren't involved in that nonprofit and having to get up in front of everybody to speak, do you ever think you would have had the urge after that first experience to get up on stage again and talk to people?
I don't think so. I think that opportunities just kept coming the more I put myself out there, but I don't think I ever would have pursued opportunities like I do now. Now I'm pitching people all the time and asking to talk. But I think back then, I don't there's no way I would have ever put myself front and center on a stage. Nope.
In-
I'm
Interesting.
I'm really grateful other people did it for me because and now I have this really robust career in my life. I mean, it's amazing the people I've impacted by doing this, but there's no way I would have put myself front and center because of I had it in my head that there's no way I could talk in front of people. I could barely do it when I was in high school in my speech class.
As we look at your career, in speaking. Um, how much of your speaking comes from what call outbound? And I'll explain this. I'm sure you probably understand it, but just for somebody that might not. But outbound is more you're actually exerting effort to put yourself out there to find leads, to contact people, kind of like a cold call would be in sales, right? And then inbound is just content that you're putting out there that people are finding you and coming to you to speak. So how does that work in your business? How has it changed over your speaking career?
Ooh, that's a great question, Tim. Um, I think it's more, sometimes my pitching and my cold calling works really well. But I think most of it is that I'm putting content out constantly through my website, through Facebook, through all the social media channels. I'm constantly talking and connecting with people, writing, um, putting not just snippets of my speeches, but also I go live all the time and talk and speak all the time. And so I would say like 70% of my speaking business comes from people finding me somehow through my website, through my YouTube channel, through my Facebook lives. Like someone is finding me and then asking me, like I'm resonating with them and they're asking me to come and do something for them. So I'd say about 70% of my work is that. The other 30% is pitching. And and like you said, outbound, like cold calling. And I do that constantly. So that is actually a part of my business model. So even though I'm only getting like 30% of my business from that, the way I look at it, the more people that know who I am, if I'm not a perfect fit for them, I might be perfect fit for someone down the road. And so they're going to know about me and they'll be like, oh, you should talk to Melissa Bird. She's got this great content about blah, blah, blah. So I pitch a lot. I also have started to leverage my connections on Twitter. Most of my speaking engagements have actually come from Twitter, ironically. People have hired me to come and speak because they know my content on Twitter, um, which has been a really interesting experience. And also really revealing about how much people actually pay attention to what you're putting out into the world on social media. I always thought all my speaking would come from Facebook, but none of it has. All of it's come from Twitter.
And so what type of audience are you typically speaking to?
I mostly speak to women who are looking to find their voice and make a change in their communities. So a lot of the work that I do is around helping women tap into their passion, that so that they can find their voice and speak what it is they're trying to get out into the world. And so I really help women harness the power of what they are here on earth to do so that they can go out and change their communities and change their lives. So a lot of the speaking that I do, I happen to speak to a lot of social workers because I am a social worker. So much of the speaking that I've done work related, or it's women's conferences, women's empowerment, women in leadership. I've recently started speaking to women in business, so I have um, a, a whole entire workshop and like keynote speech around engaging in graceful revolution in business. So really talking about overcoming your imposter syndrome and harnessing the power of your intuition to to either run a business or up level the work that you're doing in the world. So
And we look at your business, obviously I know you just mentioned, doing keynotes and workshops, right? And those are kind of pre-corona, the in-person type of events. When and going, not saying where we're at right now, but if I was talking to you in December of last year, what other types of products and services are you offering in addition to the workshops and the keynotes?
well, it's really funny you asked me that because I have moved everything online. So I'm actually doing stuff online and everything online, like most people who speak are doing, now that we're in Corona. In December, if you would have asked me, I had just started a company with one of my friends and now business partner to put together a conference for women producers in mortgage, so loan officers and women who are working on the front lines in mortgage, to empower them to harness their wealth. And we had this whole, in December we launched. Like we formed the company, we started getting our keynote speakers together, and we were putting together a conference, a day and a half long conference for 450 women in Portland, Oregon, that was supposed to take place in February of 2021. So we were like, my speaking business, I was going to speak at the conference, had turned into me putting together this conference. We're still doing it. We're just not doing it until 2022. And we have no idea what it's going to look like in 2022 either. But what happened is we decided to leverage all my public speaking and just start creating conferences of our own to help women harness their wealth and gain power, because money's power. So if you would have asked me back then, I would have totally told you about Ashling Productions and all the amazing stuff that we're doing. And we're still doing it, but we've had to convert the whole entire process to online. So what we're doing now is we're interviewing all the women who are working in the mortgage industry and putting videos up on YouTube and really starting to get those women's voices elevated so that by the time we're ready for the conference, people are really jazzed and excited to come.
Interesting. So you got, you're speaking, your workshops, you're doing conferences. Do you get into coaching, consulting, books, courses, anything like that you're selling?
Yeah, the other thing that I do is called Rebel School. So my business is called Natural Born Rebel. I guess I should have said that at the very beginning, but I'm still tired, Tim. But so through my business, my other business, it's called Natural Born Rebel, and I have a group coaching program called Rebel School, where it's 12 weeks of group coaching and then individual coaching three times throughout the course of that program. And that Rebel School teaches women how to tap into their natural born rebel and that inherent rebelliousness so that they can, because rebellion, I believe, is about innovation and creativity and making change. And so I help them figure out how their tendency toward rebellion is actually what we need our change agents to be tapping into right now, because going against the grain is going to be what I think is going to save our communities, especially in this time. Really thinking outside the box and really being creative and innovative in your thinking. And so I do Rebel School where I coach, and I do some one-on-one coaching, but for the most part, my joy is in doing Rebel School. I love Rebel School. It's awesome.
So if you were to look at your overall business model, and say between these coaching, clients that you have, between the conference that you might help organize or are organizing, and then and anything else, books, anything else that you have, and then just the pure speaking / workshops that you're doing, what percentage of revenue comes from the speaking and workshops compared to all the other stuff that you're doing?
I'd say I've gotten it up to like a 40-60 split. So 60% of my revenue is coming from Rebel School. Then about 40% is coming from my speaking and my workshops. So I'd like it to be even. Like I would like half of my revenue to come from speaking and workshops and half of it to come from Rebel School. That's a really big goal that I have. And I think that would be really amazing and incredible. And so that's really something that I'm shooting towards. But and I thought at one point that I wanted the speaking to take over, so that I was only doing Rebel School a little bit, but I have fallen in love with that program in such a way that I never expected to. And so I kind of want it to be even.
I think it's interesting as I'm listening to you, because if you were to, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to create, this community of speakers that I'm creating, is because I think everybody's path is so different. And I'm listening to you, and if you would have had like the vision of where you wanted to go at the very beginning, and you probably would have never been able to give yourself a chance to fall in love with doing that type of work, right?
Yeah, no, if I would have stuck to what my brain was telling me, I would not even be here with you. I'd be like panicking about not having a job. Like I don't know, if my brain constantly, and I think this is really important for people, anybody who's speaking now or who wants to be a speaker or who's thinking about starting a business or is early in a business. If I would have listened to my brain, I would not be sitting here. Like running this successful, not only running my Natural Born Rebel, but now I've got this other company, and I'm building a retreat center, and like I'm doing all these things. And so like if I would have listened to my brain, I would have been working as a barista, or like, I wouldn't have even been using my social work degree. Like, I would have just like shut it all down and been like, I can't do this. But it was that I watched for the signs. So I watched for the messages. Hey, I read a blog you wrote 2 years ago. Is there any way you'd be willing to speak at this conference? And I'm like, sure, like, okay. And taking the opportunities, because like the perinatal social workers, the National Association of Perinatal Social Workers asked me to speak at their conference. And I don't do perinatal social work. Like I don't work with babies, in the NICU. I've never done that in my life. But she had been so inspired by my blogs and what I was putting on Twitter that that's why they hired me to come and speak. And so it was paying attention to the messages from the universe. I mean, that's how you and I met. Sarah was like, "Hey, I know this speaking guy and she's a speaking girl, and so you two should connect," right? If I would have like said to Sarah, "No, that's not going to work out for me. Like I'm not into that. Thanks." I wouldn't be sitting here chatting with you. Like, so I think it's really important for people to pay attention to the signs, that where they go, where did that come from? Like, why is that connection happening? Because that's the sweet spot, and that's where you get all your gigs from.
I like it. And I definitely know that that is exactly what has happened for me and what led me to where I am right now. And I'm just, there's this interesting thing that comes up about this cold calling / outbound stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I know you said you have some success, but it's part of your business model.
Mhm.
Knowing who you're trying to connect with, how do you go about finding the people to reach out to for these cold calls? Can you explain that process a little bit?
I really look for organizations and individuals who I think I could help. So, um, one of the things we started doing in the last year was targeting women um, executives in HR. So, people who were high level HR people, because they always have money to do workshops and trainings for their people. We started targeting administrators at college campuses and universities who were women. And then we started targeting women in small business who were involved with their chambers of commerce. So we very much targeted, and we did it through Twitter. So we started following and connecting with women on Twitter who fell into those categories. And I have just finished creating the pitching. I got a little waylaid by the corona. So I'm getting ready to start pitching, because we've now have a list of several hundred women, and I'm just going to start pitching them and ask them if they want me to do um, the Graceful Revolution in Business online for their people. So
Awesome.
I just got really targeted in who I wanted to connect with. And I think that's really a critical, important thing for people to remember, is you got to know who you want to talk to. And if you don't know who you want to talk to, you're going to be scrambling around in the dark, kind of drowning a little bit and really overwhelmed. And I was tired of feeling overwhelmed. I did not want there's so many opportunities out there. Like, and I was pitching big conferences and getting rejected constantly, but I still kept pitching them anyway, like BlogHer and some of these other huge conferences, and getting rejected anyway, because I wanted the practice. I mean, if there's anything I learned getting a PhD, Tim, it's revise and resubmit. So, you write an article, you submit it, and then people rip you apart and you have to revise it and resubmit it. And then they rip you apart. It's a very painful, awful process. But the thing I learned was, if it doesn't work the first time, there's always an opportunity to revise your pitch and revise what you're saying and resubmit it somewhere else. And so, if there's anything I've learned about this process, it's to keep telling my story, keep talking about how I can be effective for you, and someone will hear it. Someone's going to hear it. And they don't show up, by the way, for like 2 years. So they want to know you've got staying power. They want to know you're not just in this really quick to make money and get out, right? Like, So the people that are showing up as my clients and the people who are hiring me now have been watching me since 2017 when I started my business. And so don't give up. People, you all who are just in your first year of starting your public speaking, carry on. Gonna be
So,
okay.
so one thing that that I really like asking people is, if you were to give somebody who's interested in getting involved in speaking one piece of advice that you've learned through your experience, what would it be?
Whew, what would it be? Mm. Hmm. This is what it would be. Have a good damn time. Like really, if you are not having fun and you are not experiencing joy in the process, even in the process, even when you've been rejected, you're not like, that's all right. I've just learned something. Have fun with the process of creating a speech, giving the speech. That's the funnest part, right? Is getting on the stage and like having people like go, oh, like you can feel the energy in the room when you've hit it. But have fun in the process of getting to that stage. Have fun in the process of connecting with other people. Remember that if you get rejected, that's just because there's someone better waiting. And just really enjoy that process of going through um, being present in putting yourself out into the world so that people can hear your message. I think that if I wasn't having a good time doing this, I wouldn't still be doing it. But I'm really having a good time. And I have a good time the whole way through. It doesn't feel like work. Like pitching doesn't feel like work. All of these connecting with all these people and saying, hey, I don't know if I can be useful. And they're like, no, but I know this person who could totally use you right now. So I'm going to pass your name on to them. I mean, that happens to me all the time. So really enjoy this process because it's fun and it's not all going to fall in your lap right away, just so you know.
Oh,
Really
this.
have a good time with the rejection.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for joining me this morning. And before we go, can you just let everybody know how they can find you? I'm guessing Twitter, and I'm sure your website.
Yes, so you can find me at online at naturalbornrebel.com. That's my website. And I have a free book there called Natural Born Rebel that's got amazing journal prompts and all sorts of incredible things. So you should download it because it's amazing. And then you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bird Girl, BIRDGIRL 1001. And Twitter's where I throw my tantrums. So if you want to get a good side of me, join me on Twitter or Facebook. Thanks, Tim. It's been so
Well,
nice to see you this morning.
yeah, thank you. And I'm going to do something. I'm just testing this out. And for
Yeah.
anybody that's watching, this is the very first recording I'm doing. So everything's new. I am a big believer in not just showing people the final produced product, because it's the journey that gets us there. And
Yes.
so trying, failing, falling, making mistakes is all part of what I want to be sharing. But what I'm really interested in is, I'm going to stop broadcasting to YouTube right now. And
Okay.
so it'll just be you and I, and we're going to record one more question that not everybody will get. But if people go to speaking.business and sign up for the email, it's free. And I'm going to be starting to put out little snippets of wisdom from my guest that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. So that is what I'm going to try here. So thanks everybody for watching. Go over to www.speaking.business and you will be able to capture the question I'm just about to ask Missy.